Picture this. A Roman woman takes a dagger, plunges it into her own chest, pulls it out, and with her dying breath tells her terrified husband, "It doesn't hurt." These were the words that made Arria one of the most admired women in all of Roman history. But here's what most people don't know. This moment of ultimate sacrifice was just the final act of a story so incredible, it will change how you think about love and courage forever. I'm about to tell you the story of Arria, wife of Caecina Paetus, during the reign of Emperor Claudius in 1st century Rome. This isn't just another tale from ancient history. It's a story that reveals what true devotion looks like when everything is on the line. Now, we know this story because it was preserved by Pliny the Younger in his famous letters, specifically Book 3, Letter 16 of his epistles. He heard it directly from Arria's granddaughter, making this one of the most authentic accounts of courage we have from the ancient world. But before we get to those famous final words that echo through history, you need to understand what led to that moment. Because Arria's greatest act wasn't her death, it was how she lived. And trust me, by the end of this video, you'll see why the Romans considered her the model of what a noble woman should be. Hit that subscribe button if you love incredible stories from history. Our story begins with rebellion. Caecina Paetus, Arria's husband, was a Roman senator who made a fateful decision. He joined a revolt against Emperor Claudius, led by a man named Scribonianus in Illyricum. Picture the political climate: tension, uncertainty, and the constant threat of imperial retribution. When the rebellion collapsed and Scribonianus died, Paetus was arrested and brought back to Rome as a prisoner. Now here's where most wives might have stayed home, praying and hoping. Not Arria. When she learned her husband was being transported by ship back to Rome, she went to the soldiers guarding him and made an incredible request. She begged them to let her board the ship. Her argument was brilliant. "You'll need to assign servants to serve his meals, to help him dress, to put on his shoes. I'll do all of this for him." The soldiers refused. So what did Arria do? She hired her own fishing boat. Imagine this small vessel following the massive Roman transport ship across the Mediterranean. This woman was determined to stand by her husband no matter what the cost. But this was just the beginning of her extraordinary acts of devotion. But even before this political crisis, Arria had already proven her incredible strength in a way that will absolutely break your heart. While Paetus was gravely ill, so sick that everyone thought he might die, their son also became deathly ill. Picture a mother watching both her husband and child fighting for their lives. Then the unthinkable happened. Their son died. He was described as strikingly handsome, modest, and beloved by both parents, not just because he was their child, but because of his virtues. Now here's what makes Arria extraordinary. Instead of collapsing in grief, instead of adding to her husband's suffering by telling him their child was gone, she made an impossible choice. She secretly arranged the funeral. She attended it herself. She mourned alone. Then she walked back into her husband's sick room and acted as if nothing had happened. When Paetus asked about their son, Arria would smile and say, "He's sleeping peacefully. He ate with a good appetite." She kept this charade going day after day, only allowing herself to grieve when she left the room. Can you imagine the strength this took? To bury your child and then pretend they're alive to protect someone you love? This is the woman we're dealing with. Someone who understood that love sometimes means carrying unbearable burdens alone. Let me know in the comments if you think you could show this kind of strength. Now, before we continue, you need to understand something about Roman culture. In their society, how you faced death determined your honor for eternity. For condemned nobles, suicide wasn't just an option. It was expected. It was considered far more honorable than execution. But here's the thing about facing your own death. Knowing it's the right thing to do and actually having the courage to do it are completely different things. And that's exactly the situation Paetus found himself in. Back in Rome, Paetus faced trial and, as expected, was condemned to death. According to Roman custom, he was given the honor of taking his own life rather than facing public execution. But when the moment came, Paetus wavered. This brave man who had joined a rebellion against the emperor, who had risked everything for his beliefs, found himself paralyzed by fear when facing the final act. And Arria watched her husband struggle with terror. Now, there's a moment that shows you everything about Arria's character. When other family members tried to talk her out of joining her husband in death, her son-in-law Thrasea pleaded with her, asking, "If I had to die, would you wish your daughter to die with me?" Her response was immediate and chilling. "If she had lived as long and as happily with you as I have lived with Paetus, yes." Think about that answer. She wasn't speaking from despair or temporary emotion. This was a calculated decision based on a lifetime of love and partnership. When her family realized she was serious, they began watching her constantly to prevent her from harming herself. Arria noticed their vigilance and told them something that gives you chills. "Your efforts are useless. You can make me die hard, but you cannot prevent me from dying." To prove her point, Arria did something shocking. While her family watched, she suddenly jumped from her chair and threw herself headfirst against the stone wall with tremendous force. She collapsed, unconscious and bleeding. When she came to, her first words were, "I told you I would find a difficult way of dying if you denied me an easy one." This woman was absolutely determined, but her family's vigilance meant she needed to wait for the right moment. That moment came when she saw her husband struggling with the dagger, unable to complete the act that Roman honor demanded. In that instant, Arria knew exactly what she had to do. She had spent her entire marriage showing Paetus how to live with courage and dignity. Now she would show him how to die with it. You won't believe what happens next. And then came the moment that made Arria immortal in Roman memory. Seeing her husband's fear and hesitation, she moved with decisive action. She took the dagger from his trembling hands and, without a moment's pause, drove it deep into her own chest. The pain must have been excruciating, but Arria didn't cry out. Instead, she immediately pulled the blade from her wound. With blood flowing from her chest and using her last reserves of strength, she held the weapon out to her husband. And as she gasped for her final breaths, she spoke the words that would echo through history: "Paete, non dolet." It is not painful, my Paetus. Think about the incredible psychology of this moment. With those 4 simple words, she accomplished something extraordinary. She removed his fear. She showed him that death was not to be feared. She proved that if she could face it without pain, so could he. It was the ultimate act of love, not just dying with him, but showing him the way. Inspired by his wife's courage and shamed by his own hesitation, Paetus took the dagger and completed the act. They died together as they had lived, as partners facing whatever came their way. But here's what Pliny the Younger tells us makes this even more remarkable. Pliny the Younger, who preserved this story for us, makes a fascinating observation. He argues that while Paete, non dolet, became famous throughout the Roman world, Arria's other acts of courage, hiding her son's death, following her husband across the sea, her unwavering determination, were actually more noble because they were done without any thought of fame or glory. She didn't perform these acts knowing they would make her immortal. She did them simply because love demanded it. This story isn't just about ancient Rome. It's about what happens when someone decides that their commitment to another person is absolute. Arria shows us that true devotion isn't just about the big moments, the dramatic gestures. It's about the daily choice to put someone else's well-being before your own comfort, your own safety, even your own life. The Romans admired her because she embodied their highest ideals of loyalty, courage, and honor. But I think we can admire her for something even more universal. She shows us what love looks like when everything else falls away. So the next time someone asks you what true love looks like, tell them about Arria. Tell them about a woman who proved that the greatest act of courage isn't facing death. It's facing life with unwavering devotion to the people who matter most. What do you think? Could you show Arria's kind of loyalty? Let me know in the comments below. If this story moved you, smash that like button and subscribe for more incredible tales from history. And check out this next video about other remarkable women from ancient Rome. You won't believe what they accomplished.